Hi, everybody. So I know we are in the disadvantage here because my boss just spoke a few minutes ago, and apparently, like nothing compares to that. So yeah, so that's one point I made with you, Gary, was that after he speaks, nobody else does. But you didn't listen to me. I'm just joking. He's always great, but this is another thing. So, my name is Anuela Aristani. I am the deputy mayor of Tirana. Hence, one level down, hence later than my boss. But I'm so happy to still have you here. We met this morning with some of you, hopefully lots of you, and we will keep meeting again. So this is our mayor session, which is not really technically mayor, this is our city session, right? And we've been talking all day about your guys' role into how making cities healthier, how making our lives healthier, how to participate in policy. And all of it makes sense, right? When it comes to cities, it's a little not so much straightforward. And we're thinking of cities as this huge organisms of moving and shaking and living and fighting and sharing and non-sharing communities that go against each other's and interests and developments and all of this chaos. We're not necessarily connecting our well-being with the fact that we're living in one city or another, right? But it turns out that and research better than me saying it, turns out that where we live decides a lot of how much health there is in our lives, right? So if you're living in Tirana, you're probably healthier than if you're living in Sarajevo, numbers say. If you're living in Vienna, you're probably healthier than if you were to live in Addis Ababa, right? So there's numbers who are saying the story. So we have to uncover what really lies behind those numbers and what really lies behind this statement that has been proved so much from so much research and scientific data. So I'm so happy to have here with me a great panel of people that really cover all these points of view. And I will start from our director, Hans Kluge. Welcome, sir. You lead basically the European region. So what we mean by region in this part of the world is like basically the Western Balkans. So when you guys say region and it includes all of these countries, that makes us feel so much better, because we're always in the struggle of where we really fit in. So for those of you who are local, you really know what I mean here. And we can talk about that later on politically. And the next person I want to invite and I want to welcome is actually my very dear colleague, friend, Katie Luaresi, our other deputy mayor, who has the fun job of also covering topics like the well-being in our city, unlike I. And then I have Eugenio. I'm going to say your name in Italian. Posso? Okay. Eugenio di Schiat. I just outdid myself here. I'll try again. That southern accent, man, I could never do that. Yeah. Okay. I do better in English than in Italian. Welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Eugenio is our deputy mayor of Bari, which is a city across the sea, across the Adriatic from Albania. And for us, it feels like home. We're just talking about it, how people commute back and forth because it's so close, yet so different. And then I have online a very dear friend, Duyeta. How are you? Duyeta is the deputy mayor of Pristina. Duyeta Sahaciu is one of our bright and upcoming leaders of the region. So I'm really happy to have you here. She comes from a digital background, digital knowledge. So we meet again together on so many of these occasions, but she also does cover well-being in Pristina as well. So welcome, Doneta. I cannot wait to get started. I took too much of the guest's time. And the first question, which is what is gathering us, all here, is What is it about cities, you guys? What is it about cities that is so connected to health and well-being? What can we do? We're not the Ministry of Health. We're not health practitioners by profession. We're not. But yet, numbers say that we are having a lot of influence in people's well-being, in our citizens' health. So, what can we do? What is doable on the local level that impacts people's health? From you, director. I'm sorry, I didn't point out. I was just that's yeah. One other thing I have to learn.
And hello also to my respected panel members. So I'm actually very much looking forward to learn from you because you are doing it in practice. So I can share some thoughts. Is that we say in WHO always, think globally, act locally. Because the proximity is very important. I think it was clear from the speeches from the minister, the mayor, to be close to the people and know what are their expectations and needs. And I always say, if you have a committed mayor or a committed governor, then WHO's approach, what we call health in all policies, is much more easier and more effective to implement. Because if you have an intersectoral commission at federal level, then often we see if it's about health that prime minister delegates to deputy prime minister or to deputy minister, and it doesn't have so much traction. But I worked in a number of countries in previous positions on the field, and I was always impressed. You have a committed mayor, you have a committed governor, who then is putting the sectors together. And as the mayor was telling, he was a schoolmate of Minister Liu, so the human connections are often there as well. I would say even we see sometimes in the opposition, because ultimately people want to do good. That's why they become politicians. And we see in more and more polls, including in the country where I'm living, Denmark and the city Copenhagen, that health and mental health starts to top very high on the agenda of the people. So they want their politicians and the people who govern really to invest in health. I will give an example. Very soon after the war broke out in Ukraine, I went to the border between Poland and Ukraine, to the train station where the Ukrainian people were arriving. And it was amazing how it's called president there, president of the municipality, was mobilizing really the private sector, the business people, the doctors, the nurses, and medical students, because there was a shortage in man and woman power, because there was also the COVID-19, and the medical students were asked, in fact, to, as a volunteer, give the jabs and do the screenings. So a lot is really possible because you have this, what I call, sense of belonging.
So much, sir. It is really about people when it comes to the end. So it doesn't really matter your degree or your sense of involvement. It so much depends on people. And since you've been talking about him all along, Katie knows what kind of person has led this city and how he's personally involved in this. And you probably heard from him before. But what has Tirana done in that sense to take this role of health unofficial health managers on the local level, other than what is in policy level and in central government? Could you please share some stuff?
Absolutely, and thank you for this opportunity. Um, Most probably you have heard from the mayor earlier that we at the city this year have won the European Youth Capital title. And actually, this was not just by accident. It was a long time work, hard work, done together with the young people. And this has been our main focus and our main priority at the city. And why we did that, we understood that we need to tackle the health and the well-being of our young people in many levels. First of all, we need to have them come outdoors. every one of us, all our lives, most of our lives, we spend it inside, indoors. But we live our lives outside. And this is exactly what we wanted, our young people, our kids, our people, to just go outside. But where would they go? In 2015, when we took the office, we had no public spaces available. We have just the artificial lake, but it was run in such a bad shape that no people go there. So we did that as the first thing. We turned that park into the most frequented place for all the city life. And now about 1 million people visit it yearly. And all our kids and all our young people go and stay there and spend most of their time there, not just having a walk or doing jogging or running, but also participating in a variety of different sports activities, because we have constructed there the Olympic Park, we have constructed their bike lanes, we have constructed their walking paths, and swimming pools, Olympic swimming pools. So there are tennis courts, there are a variety of different activities that has been placed in that particular area. And this is just one of the examples that we started our work in the city. The collaboration with the young people was in many of other levels. We saw that, and we took that as the best example. So we wanted to have people just staying in the inside of their home, to be connected with one another. So we constructed so far 85 playgrounds just in every single neighborhood of the city. And we took that as an opportunity, not just for the young people to stay and be connected to one another, but also for the elderly, also for the young parents, also for the kids. So they will not stay at home playing all the time on PlayStations and their phones, but playing on the outdoors. Parents and the elderlies, having that as a social connection with one another. So trying to have that kind of stress relief and healing their souls and healing their bodies. So this was our first approach towards making the life of the citizens more healthier and taking care of their well-being. Together with citizens, and especially with young people, we understood that we have our education, our schools and our sports facilities not in a very good shape. So we tried to take that kind of approach and to reconstruct and construct from scratch 45 sports facilities in all our new school buildings, in all our newly constructed buildings. Of course, earthquake came, pandemic came, and we wanted to use that kind of approach and these kind of facilities, not just for school hours, but we wanted our communities, the people who live in these neighborhoods, to come and visit them after school, to use them. So now we have 45 school playgrounds, sports facilities that are accessible to all the community after the school hours. We knew that we had problems at the city level with the air pollution, with traffic jams, and we thought that what can we do together with our citizens, together with our young people, to have a much more livable city, a much more sustainable mobility in the city. So we took the strategic approach toward, the systematic approach toward the traffic and the mobility. We implemented so far in the city, from scratch, 58 kilometers of bike lanes. So all our people, or our young generation, can commute and can go to school, to work, to their social gatherings, not by cars, but taking the bike, by walking, And Tirana is a very easy and very flat city, so it's very easy to walk and to bike in this city. And now we have created these specific bike lanes which are protected, so people does not have difficulties biking their bicycles or commuting from one place to another. On the other side, we thought that taking away these streets, these driving lanes, would help our citizens walk faster and have more space for themselves. So we spent a lot of money and a lot of energy discussing with our citizens and definitely building more pedestrian areas. Definitely you have seen the Skanderbeg Square. This is one of our biggest achievements, turning that roundabout just 6 years ago, which was nearly a death experience crossing from one point to another, turning it into a 28,000 meters square of pedestrian area, covered with a lot of pocket gardens and playgrounds, so every single person can come and join and gather together and stay in an area which has a lower pollution rate compared to the rest of the city, where the traffic jam and the vehicles move all the day long. I don't know if I have time, but because we can continue and go on forever on this
No,
perspective.
Was that too harsh? Sorry. We're friends, she'll forgive me. I will return to Eugenio. Grazie per essere qua. I'm not gonna even try there. So Bari is very different from Tirana, of course, and so and every city is different on that sense. I know that you guys have the sea, which is one of the healthiest things one could have, which is like a gift from God, you know. Other than that, though, what is there on the city level that really helps people feel better?
Well, thanks for this invitation and for this opportunity. Well, Bari is a city on the sea, but what we've been doing in the last years regarding our relationship with the sea has been to change it, because unfortunately Bari, though it's completely on the sea, it had not, how can I say, a good relation with the sea. So we started, because we had fantastic, I have to say, because strangely I'm from Bari, promenade on the sea, but you didn't have shores on the sea. You had a part of the coast that was practically devastated by several layers of history, may I say, of bad history. And so we started to retake our relationship with the sea. We started making shores that are used both by the citizens and by tourists, for example. And we're going on that. We're also rebuilding, also thanks to the financial aid from the European Union, a good part of the coast of our city. And we're building on it also in terms of economy and of tourism, as I was mentioning. But also we've been trying to interact with less fortunate neighborhoods, because basically we have been trying to build playgrounds in areas where there was nothing up to a few years ago. And we've had a lot of success on that. Now the problem is regarding the relationship with the young generation. Is from the standpoint of health. We are not in Italy. The cities do not directly, strictly deal with health. It's a regional mandate. But we've been experiencing in the last 2 years especially with the pandemic, growth both in mental issues, the difficulties that all the children, both at university and in the school period, they have been having with 2 years of digital learning, and we're trying to increase our relationship, both in terms of human relationships. So we're having more and more events that tend to bring young people together, and also to try to take those 2 years back. And this is a real issue, especially for some kind of some of the ages. I mean, teenagers have had 2 years, at least in Italy, practically without going to school. And also from universities. I'm in real life, I'm not a politician, I'm a university professor of computer science. So, and we also have the experience, and Bari is a large university city because we have 3 universities and 70,000 students. And we've been experiencing the difficulties that they have. And as one of the major points for the future of Italy, apart from the aging population, which is a real problem, in 2020, Bari had exactly dead people were twice the newborn. So there's a real issue on this, but we have also another big issue that is typically Italian, but also in the southern part of Italy, which was up to a few years different. We have few children and also have a lot of needs. People that don't study, quit studying, and so we now have a strong demand especially from digital companies in our area. And we are trying our best to have them get back to study, to experience that there is a possibility to build up a future, also because we have a lot of work to do, and few young people who are working. So the process we've been doing, both with the schools, with the city, and also with the regional authority, has been to increase all elements of the education, to streamline the process, to let them have a new possibility, also a second chance in life. Thanks.
Grazie, Eugenio. Thank you very much. I know that at least mental health-wise, Bari is one of those cities that has a lot to offer in terms of culture, and so that helps with health a lot, especially with mental health. And the city we're going next doesn't have the sea, but likewise, they do lots of cultural activities, and that's one of the main attractions, I personally believe, of Pristina. And I don't know if the deputy who's online, if Doneta will agree with me. So floor is yours, my dear.
Thank you so much. Just a confirmation that you're hearing me okay?
For it, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I wish I could be there sitting together with you on the panel, but I'm joining from Pristina. Mental health and well-being is one of my biggest priorities here. And I have just 8-9 months in. As you mentioned in the beginning, I'm very new in this role, the political role. But one of the reasons I joined this is as a young person myself to kind of open the mindset of how things are being done in the city, but also within the institution of the city. And what I mean by that is that we are a city, we are a country where 70% of our population is under the age of 35, but yet we have very few young people within public institutions, which means the youth is not that well involved in designing policies, in designing strategies, and basically in designing nothing. So one of the reasons why, as a new governance coalition, we are very looking forward to building a new strategy. Our youth strategy has expired, I think, 5, 6 years ago. And we are very happy that we are now in the process that we've also won some, with Europe Goes Local, we've won some support and technical assistance from drafting a strategy. And how we want to do this, of course, is we want to sit down with all important stakeholders, youth organizations that have done quite a lot of things during the past here in Pristina, and that they can help us um, basically translate political views, political statements into actionable points and things that are really, really hands-on, close to people. And we will not are not looking forward to having a strategy that is in itself very vague and very political and very cold in content. We really want to be down to earth and also talk about the aspect of mental health. Um, what we see nowadays is, unfortunately, and I think that what we miss the most as a community, and I'm not just speaking from Pristina, but I think it's this goes also in Tirana and everywhere where we have Albanians, is that we are really up to this day not so open about talking about these topics. And what I see every single day is that youth are very timid in terms of starting talking about how they feel. And the minute someone asks them, "How are you? How are you feeling?" They are not prone to talking about the anxiety or whatever issues they are facing at the day, because they think that they are the only ones that are facing those. And I am a person myself that I have issues with anxiety over a while, and especially during pandemics. And every single time I meet youth and I talk about it, people, they tend to see you in this persona, in this box, that you are now a leader and you are responsible for a lot of things in the city. And that if you talk about this, then you kind of get shocked that you are also one of the people that talk about this freely and then have these issues, because we seem to be so strong and so fit when we talk and when we lead and everything else. But deep down, we are part of it and we also experience it. So I think if we as politicians, but also as people that are very involved within the city, if we start talking about our personal stories, about the stories of people, of family, of friends that we are surrounded with, the more realistic this all becomes, and then the more close to the people it becomes. I think people, and especially youth here, are desperate for honesty. They really want to see people leading them that are very honest, that are not perfect, and that don't have any issues or that they don't do any mistakes. And if they build trust upon you based on your honesty, that you really mean, and then you really are working on this, and then you can maybe establish some sort of relationship with the youth. We are living in an era where we have a lot of digital bullying too. And I think that is also a very important aspect to mention, because cities don't tend to prioritize online bullying and digital bullying. I come, as you mentioned, from a digital world. My last 15 years I've spent in the sector of ICT and digital. So I've been very well informed and also hands-on involved in talking about all these the effect that the digital solutions have on youth. And I don't like how we portray these things. We say that we don't like people using youth using apps or using mobile phones, but we do nothing to provide alternatives to. And we don't talk about the security, the privacy component, and the content that we provide for people to go online. So it's okay if we have youth very interested in using these digital applications and tools, but then we have to work on the content that they see and how they get engaged through those tools. An issue we have here in Pristina is that besides not having a lot of young people involved within the city that are part of decision-making processes, we also lack a lot of young people that are part of our public discussion. So let's say we want to build a new street, or we want to build a new museum, or we want to change something within the neighborhood. We put out ads or information out on social media or in other ways of communication, that we're having this public debate or discussion. And what happens is that very few, if not none, of the youth participate. And this is what I encountered my second and third month in, and I was shocked. And then I started thinking, okay, Doniet, you also were young at this age at some point, and you didn't participate neither. So what is actually the problem? Why did you not? Why wasn't this attractive to you to go out in the city hall and give your opinion of what you think about your street, your neighbor, or something alike? So we're really trying to be empathetic, to really think like a young person, and really be honest about it, and not just political, and try to just simply have actionable points that are really measurable and that the youth itself can carry on and can be involved themselves.
Thank you, Dunita. I think you really stole my second question for the panel here, which you kind of covered already on how we, and I think Katie mentioned it and Eugenio mentioned it as well, on how we get them involved and how we really listen to our young people. So I'm just going to improvise and ask you guys a follow-up question instead. We know we're trying several things here, right? As local administrators, there's investments that goes into it. There's money where your mouth is. There's a lot of effort in communicating with youth, and there's a lot of thirst to really get their firsthand not just opinion, but where they stand with regards to what we want them to do. So my question for you is, if there were no limited resources, with the knowledge that each of you has, and this is a panel for everybody, we take by reverse order, Doneta goes first. If you could change something in terms of local management and to improving young people's health in your city and in case in the region, and again, let's say we have limitless resources, what would it be?
So one of the ways is to build counselors, so local counselors, to have a youth counselor, and youth really need to trust the person they talk to. Now I understand this. We are this is the times we want to check the services. We go digital. We want to have everything automatic and digital, but we should not lose touch of the human component. And I think this is the most important thing when dealing with youth. They really want to be listened to. They really want to have a chance to sit down with you, and even if it's just listening to them and not saying anything, just empathizing with them and understanding where they are and where they want to go and how they want to be, and how you can be of an active participant and helping them push them forward. So one of the things, solutions can be, besides having limited resources, as you mentioned, is building these local youth counselors that are not part of the assembly, but they are really focused on different parts of the city, or maybe the ideal will be to have one per each neighborhood or sort of area that you can go to. You have community centers you can go to. You can ask them for career advice, for mental health advice, for, I don't know, you have an issue with your feelings, or with your career, or you're troubled for something else, then you really need to have a safe space where you can talk about these things. And it's very difficult for youth to see institutions close to them and a safe space, because we are used to seeing them as these rigid institutions and buildings where you have to be very careful when you enter, and then you have to make an appointment, and it's very bureaucratic, things don't get done. So we need to lose a bit to be more flexible and to be there for them. So you don't need to be really that much creative, just to be there for them and listen to them in what they need. Another example of this could be through online counseling. So what we found out that was very successful during the pandemic as well is that we built these online chats, which were anonymous, that you can go out there, you can just tune in, and you can talk about your problem with a psychologist in the background. And then of course you are completely anonymous, and you can have the tips that you need. or anything like that. Another component or part of
This is your
this
last suggestion.
active engagement and participation has to do with involving them hands-on in the process of designing something. So if we see that we don't have youth participating in these discussions or public events, then you really go out to them, because we sometimes we call them out and we expect them to come to us. But we sometimes really do a little effort in terms of going where they are. And that means going in everywhere around the city, even that within a bar or within a gaming center or wherever that is. If we go there and we try to make these groups and get their opinion and feedback, and maybe digitalize the process to how they make feedback so it's very quick and easy for them, then we need to adapt to where they are and how they work.
Thank you. Eugenio?
Well, I don't think you can buy them, but I think what we should provide are hope and truth and trust. So three things. We have to say the truth. We have to instill hope, but to instill hope, you have to also give something to hope for. And then you need to have people that will trust you. And our experience, I mean, we've just had the general elections in Italy. Regardless of who won, now we got a new government, so best for best government, best country. So right or wrong is my country. But the thing we notice that the least participating people are the young ones. They don't trust nobody. They have the idea that there's no hope. So you don't need to get involved. And so one of the most important points for us is to get them back involved, and or starting to get them back get involved, because this is from our experience, we need to provide something to work for, to believe into. And our history in the recent years has not been good. I mean, both from the political point of view, but also in terms of the idea that the good Italian life is, but it's not a country for young men and young girls. So we have to reverse that process, and that's what we've been trying to do also in our city. But I mean, it's not a simple process.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very candid. Katie?
Well, I'd like to follow exactly where Eugenia has left, and I agree very much with both of the panelists. Taking a very proactive approach toward the young people, a young generation, and not just waiting for them to participate, but taking the participation into them, I believe that will be the first approach in engaging young people and definitely bringing them in the policy life of the city. What I mean by that is we have tested this already, and it works. It works, for example, throughout this year of European Youth Capital, we have received approximately 900 applications for activities from young people, being them young NGO, young groups of people, individuals. And we have done so far about 400 activities together with them in the city throughout this year. And we have received tremendous engagement. We have received fantastic ideas how we can follow up the progress and the process. And we have turned Tirana into a working process itself. It's just like Sagrada Familia. Every time you go, you see that something new has been done. It's a work in progress, but it's still progress. And this is exactly what we would like to do with the city and how we can involve the life of the citizens and young people in our daily job and in our political influence. I like very much what Eugenio said, and I fully agree with him when he said that we need to earn the trust of the young people towards the politic making. This is absolutely very important. And how you gain this trust is exactly by involving them in the political process. We have involved them in the work of when we decide what we are going to implement in the city budget, what we are going to develop. So every single year, we invite them to express their voice. And we have done something that Donjeta mentioned that they would like to do. But we have put quotas on our city council, and we have now 30% of all our city councillors coming from young activists. So this is something that we are receiving, we are hearing their voice. But if we don't be active, be proactive, and work together in our neighborhoods, together with our people, would never gain that trust. So this is something that when we hear, we need to turn it back and to make it a real progress, a real checkbox in our daily job. Another thing I would like to add is, besides taking the well, we are coming from, at least in our small region, we are coming from communist countries. And we have the term volunteer from young people, which had that kind of bad reaction, bad attitude. So if we want something to be done together with the young people and involve them into all the activities, like we have done with all these activities throughout the year, in a voluntary work, that would be fantastic. It's costless. It has their education and skills developments inside, and definitely it has the life experience for their newly startup career that they are going to have as a next stage. So I would say that there are many opportunities for involving people in, not in a costly way, but on a direct attitude, on a direct approach, and involving them and bringing them in the city. So we can have many, and we have done many activities. I know that we don't have too much time, so I'll...
No, it's fine. I'm not doing anything. But I should have set a limit to up to 3 suggestions. Thank you, Katie. Actually, you guys, you have to really, if you wanna put a politician under really, really difficult situations, you tell them, tell me what you do with limitless resources, because they'll exactly think of everything they can do with limited resources, which was basically what each of you said, Donjeta included, where they immediately thought about something that requires very little or no resources. So I'll leave it up to the director to dream big. Tell me what you do if you had an endless budget to get young people to feel better.
My dream would be a pan-European exchange that basically every young person has a chance to taste the United Nations and then come back to the country. We do it a little bit. We call it the Pan-European Leadership Academy, where we, in fact, particularly from the Balkan and from Central Asia, inviting young people, but of course limited cohort, to taste. We put them with certain of our technical teams, put them in some of our country offices, and then they go back to the country. And it facilitates so much, because they understand better what the UN stands for, because the UN nowadays does not always have the best reputation. It's archaic, it's bureaucratic, you know, what the people are doing, flying back and forward, and you know, the whole time in these nice hotels. Why I'm tired of hotels. I want to sleep in my own bed, basically, you know, for all the travel. So there is this misunderstanding. It's very important these times of so much geopolitical tension that there is a body which is neutral, which can convene even conflicting parties. And I always say, if all doors are closed, including in wars, health and health diplomacy is the last door which remains open, because our mission is health for all. And vice versa would be for all my 850 staff to taste how it is to work in a Ministry of Health in a local municipality to be very close with the people. Because the win-win is when regional, global, local policies take into account the needs of the people. And maybe that's a bit of a piece of advice because several approach me and say, Hans, and how did you start to work with UN and how it's possible? And I always tell the same, that make your hands dirty first. You have to have some field work. And actually local level is ideally for this. I used to work 5 years with Doctors Without Borders as a medical doctor in some of the most difficult places on earth during the civil war in Somalia, in Liberia, 2 years in the prisons, the former gulags in Siberia with tuberculosis control in North Korea. And that gives you an experience that when you reach the policy level, you always will make the reflection. If you make policy, will the person, particularly the poor person or the victim of sexual abuse, will he or she benefit from that policy? And I think there is where we need to exchange. But I must say that I'm very inspired. I must say from all the deputy mayors, what I heard also from our colleague from Pristina, that you touch very much upon the human component and the trust. And I think that's absolutely, because that's something that no one can take away. We are also, as WHO, not the UN agency with the biggest resources among the UN, but because we work for decades in the country, through the country offices, we build up this relationship with the country and we trust each other. We're not there to point out the finger and say, this is bad or benchmarking. I mean, it's a very tough job. I'm always amazed by the work we're doing. Now I heard from the minister, Dr. Minister Liu, this concept of healthy schools. I mean, that's amazing. Because you want to be healthy, you have to start at the very beginning. And then what Mayor was talking about, not competitors, but complementary. Because ultimately, I think that's a smart city, that you complement each other and the networking. So the digital is important, but is an enabler. And to have a deputy mayor who is a digital expert telling that yes, digital is important, but should not replace the human relations, I mean, it's quite something.
That's a win.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. This was enlightening, inspiring, and very valuable. So thank you for your contributions. We are still on track. I mean, I think that if we're still believing that it's doable, it's changeable, it's manageable, then, you know, not all is lost, although we're in a difficult situation and difficult times. But I'll leave you with a thought that multilateralism has never been more important, and that means us working together has never been more important, not just globally, but also locally. Thank you very much for participating, and good luck to you all with the work that you do. Thank you, guys. You guys, yeah, sure. All of us are okay with that, right? Yeah, please. Anybody has a question? Okay. There's a mic coming for you. Yes. If you could just please introduce yourself and then point to the person you're asking.
Yes, it's not one specific remark, so it can be applied to
Yeah.
to all situations. My name is Elise. So the remark I wanted to make is on accessibility, because when we talk about smart cities and walkable cities, that poses the question of it's walkable for who? So there's a danger to that, which is accessibility and lack of accessibility, because it's walkable for people who can walk. So if you make a lot of bike lanes, if you make very nice walks, you're still leaving out people with disabilities that prevent them from walking or that make it harder for people to walk around in a city as a person who doesn't have a disability does. So I think it's important to focus on, yes, creating walkable cities, creating smart cities, but maintaining in mind that we also have to create the resources for those who are not included in that format. So creating inclusive transportation, for example, if we want to reduce cars and car transportation, creating specified resources for people who cannot access the other ones. And I think that's in all kinds, not just walkable cities. There needs to be more focus on accessibility, not only for people with disabilities, who's using the resources, because young people are an extremely diverse group, right? So when you're talking about young people, you're not only talking about people that are young, you're talking about people who have disabilities, you're talking about people who may be sex workers, you're talking about queer people, you're talking about racially marginalized people. So all of those components make accessibility way harder than we might think at first. And so a smart city would be the one who knows what the needs are of every
Takes
young
care of
person.
all. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's
takes,
very.
takes,
Yeah.
but
No, you're
truly
right.
takes care
Yeah.
of. Because we're not talking about equality, we're talking about equity.
Right.
And that's the key point.
So I don't think you're targeting anybody in particular. Let me just address, because I work with a lot of people internationally on this. So let me just address this on the part of the local level. And I'll give you the Tirana example, which in the playgrounds that Katie mentioned, we have playgrounds for special needs too, right? So, and then you have a corner for people who have special needs who could also play, along with even not just young people, even kids who have disabilities, right? We have also playgrounds specifically done for kids with disabilities, because their equipment is different, their access is different, and so on and so forth. So I think one of the things that all mayors, all cities now have learned and know how to do is, and you're right, if there is a new investment in terms of pedestrian path, in terms of walking paths, in terms of biking paths, it has to be accessible for all. I know for a fact that's what we're doing in the city. So there's no new sidewalk that we do that doesn't have accessibility for people who do not see or for people who do not walk. So there's always a ramp. The new technique for those of you who are interested in urban engineering is that the car has to go up, not the people. So, you know, if you're having a pocket where cars should have access, it's a car that should bump, you know, not somebody who has to step down and then get up. So there's a lot of new techniques, and I think that that's all out there. But you're right. There are sometimes in our line of thought more than in practice, because practice is out there and it's being done. But in our way of thinking and in our policy making, that has to be a constant. How you do that? When you make decisions and when you take decisions, you have to have somebody on the table that represents that. Because we tend to forget it. We tend to think of people in the city as being hardworking, 20 to 50, have all possibilities, have all the strength and all the physical requirements, running everywhere, working, running. But you have to have people on the table who are also not able to do all of that, or do it in a different way, right? Or need a different protection. And I loved it that you mentioned people from marginalized groups, because a city has also to be safe for all. How is a city safe for all? Well, it's by having everybody on the street, having those eyes on the streets. You're not creating dark corners. You're not avoiding or marginalizing people. You're everywhere. Everywhere is accessible for everybody. And in the neighborhoods that Katie mentioned before, in the playgrounds, they're not for kids. They're for people to get together. So most of the use is actually made by retired people, for people who are aging. So like for people who are 70 and above, and they have limited access to major metropolitan attractions, but they do have the need to socialize and to create a sense of community and to feel that they belong to that community. What does that do as well? It creates a sense of safety. So if you have somebody who's different in your neighborhood, you know that's part of your neighborhood, you know that's part of your community, you're gonna watch after them, you're gonna look after them, you're gonna make sure that they are equally protect it and represent it because that's part of who you are, right? But that's not part of who you are if you've never met them, if you never know where they're living, if you've never talked to them. But getting together downstairs practically, it's what makes that. At least it has worked. I mean, there's a variety of other things that you should do, but I love it that you mentioned that everybody has to be included. And a successful city and a smart city is a city for all. It's not a city for the digitally competent. It's not a city for the ones who can run and bike and walk. It's a city that has everybody do their best. So thank you guys for that. Yeah. Yeah, please, go ahead. Are we taking more time? I don't know. Somebody has to like kill me here
But can I
or
just-
kill the mic.
I'm sorry, but could I just follow up 2
Can we
seconds
just
on
give
that?
him and then we can follow up? Can you just give him the time
I'm
because I
gonna
don't. Yeah, we
lose
don't.
that, but
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, hello, Erudit from ACMS Albania, Albanian Committee of Medical Students. I just wanted to ask each and every one of you, do you have any specific strategies that discourage car usages because car usage in the city? Because a smart city is a city that also uses different ways of transportation that do not consist of cars. So my question is, what are your strategies to discourage car usage in the city centers, considering that it can be congested and health issues may arise from gases that are exposed that people are exposed to by cars? Yes, thank you.
Eugenio, want to take that and then we take
I'll take
turns
that.
with the girls? Yeah.
Okay, for Bari, there's a good thing that we are on the sea, so the levels of pollution has always been low. But nevertheless, we've been trying the city center is typical of a large city, also like like Tirana, as I discovered today while I was trying to get here. But we're working on 3-4 strategic efforts. More shared vehicles. So we got bikes. We're going to have scooters. Then we have been building. We started building a BTR. We don't have a subway, so we're building bus rapid transport in the city that should discourage use of cars. Then we are setting up a system. We have already started that, so it's already in use, but we're trying to spread it, a system to monetize basically your usage of your feet or a bike. So we have a gaming approach that we cash back some of the kilometers you do on that. And then also we have a brutal approach that is parking is expensive in our city. So we're trying our best to keep people out of the city center. So we have park and rides. So we keep them, if you park outside the city center, you pay €1 for the whole day. So it's quite cheap. And while it takes about €25 to park it for a day in the city. So this is more brutal, but sometimes effective way also to change the way people work.
That we should make it 25 euros in Tirana as well. I mean, it's like they already killed us for making it 5 euros, but you know, we might as well. Katie?
I'd like just to add to what Eugenia mentioned, because we have followed up exactly the same approach. And besides trying to be to reduce the car usage in the city, you need to have a very strategic approach toward the transportation. And in Tirana, we already have a very broad expansion of the inhabitants of the city. I mean, we are increasing by 30,000 inhabitants every single year. And when you have this kind of expansion, you definitely need to take care of everything for the new people that comes to live in the city. You have to take care of the roads, you have to take care of the water supply, of the buildings, of the schools, kindergartens, everything, even of the cemeteries where they are going to be buried when they die. So you have to take that huge expansion on a very systematic approach. And on the other side, in Tirana, we have tried to reduce these drive lanes. And when you do that, apart, we have changed them into bike lanes and protective ones. So you can have a very nice bicycle and go to commute to work. You don't need to take the car. So this is one approach. The other approach is we have started to build new terminals. So people who are coming from the other cities in the city every single day, they can go and stop their vehicles to the terminals that we have created and take from the terminals, which are in the south and north of Tirana, take the public transportation. And we are trying to work with those public transportation. A very systematic approach, and we have that on our strategy lines. To have changes in the city that is already built, and built in a very chaotic way, it's very difficult. You already have a limited space where you can move. So we try to bring in hybrids, and so far we have put into the bus fleet of the city 25 hybrid buses, and we are looking forward to expand that. So in order to reduce the car usage and definitely the air pollution. And parking is another thing that Eugenia mentioned. We are doing the same. We are taking space of the parking or the driving lane, and we are trying to construct a lot of stations and parking spaces where people can just park the cars, not above the surface, but within it. So not just to use that space for cars. And on the other side, I would say the usage of the electric taxis. So in Tirana, most of the fleet of the taxis in the city is turned into electric. So this definitely is cheaper nowadays, and is faster as long as you do not use your own vehicle to move from one point to another. Unfortunately, we do not have yet the EU budget for having huge amount of transport strategies building up on, let's say, trams or underground. So for us, it's impossible to do that right away, because that would take the whole budget of the city only for that purpose. So it's undoable on investments way. But we can definitely tackle every single one that I have mentioned, and we are doing, even by changing the mentality of people, the mindset. So when we ask all our kids, you don't need to drive to go to school. We ask all our parents, take them walking to the school. And if you change that mentality to the young kids, when they grow up, they'll have created a habit that it's just walking or biking, but not using their own vehicles. So it's a matter of approach, not just on the investment side, but also in the increasing of the awareness, increasing of the education on how we can have a greener city, how we can have a healthier life in our city. So there are always a variety of different approaches that we can use to tackle that kind of particular question that you had.
Thank you so much. I think we ran out of time, but our panelists will be hanging around for a few minutes. So this, I think, is a very nice end to a very nice day. So I hope you guys have an even nicer evening. And I'll see you tomorrow and the day after and the day after. Thank you. Bye.